Hello everybody and welcome back to another My Porch Prints tutorial. Today we are going to be going over 3 different ways to bind your journal, and for that we are going to be doing ring bound, sew-in, and tie-in as our 3 different ways to bind. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. We are going to be using the covers from our previous 3 ways video, which was where we made this ring bound journal, and we're going to go ahead and start by taking some papers, and these papers that I got are from the Shabby Woods journal kit, so if you're interested in that we will have it linked down below. And I went ahead and also added some coffee dyed papers in here just to sort of fill it out a little bit more, and shuffled them all so that they would be different and interesting. And to begin, we are going to cut each of these pages in half, and I'm doing them individually because I want them all to be nice and even, but if you want to do them in like small stacks, you can. And I also went ahead and printed these front and back so that they would be decorative through and through. And once I have them all sort of shuffled together, we are going to be taking our cover and sort of laying that out. Just like so. And I'm also taking this crocodile, and this is what I will be using to punch my holes so I can do them all at once, but you can go ahead and use a manual hole punch if you have that on hand instead. And taking the stack of papers, I'm going to be shuffling them so that they are all even on the side we are punching the hole through, and that way we don't accidentally miss a page or get like a half cut through one of the pages, which would not be good. And then taking some clips, I'm going to be clipping at the top and bottom so that the pages don't move around. Again, just double checking, making sure everything is even. All the pages are right side up. And then I am going to be taking a ruler and measuring where I made my holes previously, and then using that to sort of mark out where the holes need to be on the pages. Just like that. And then one last time, just making sure everything is aligned because I've had problems with this in the past, as you know if you watched the last video. And now taking the crocodile, I'm just going to punch those holes out right where we marked. And keeping the clips on so that they are easy to secure into the journal, we are going to remove the cover, and then just go ahead and add the stack of papers into the journal by hooking the rings through the holes. Just like so. And then removing the clip and adding the cover back on. Just like that. And this is a really quick and easy way to add pages to a journal if you are looking for something sort of simple as a beginner, or something different as maybe somebody who has been making journals for a long time. A ring bound journal comes with its own sort of interest and challenge, so I would recommend that you try it if you haven't. And this is what it is like when it is finished. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and set that aside and start with our journal where we will be tying the pages in. So I'm going to be taking the journal that we sewed a cover for last time. And this is a fairly simple process. Again, we are going to be taking some papers from our Spring Garden journal kit, which again I will have that linked down below, along with some coffee dyed papers and such. And just going through it now, making sure they're all shuffled properly and facing the right direction. And I'm going to be using 3 different signatures, so I've laid them out here with the front, middle, and back signatures sort of arranged how I want them to be. Just like this. And we are going to begin by taking these signatures and folding them in half. Smoothing them out with a bone folder. And once all of those are folded, they should look like this. And I like to begin in the back of my journal when I'm putting in the signatures, so that's where I'm going to begin. Starting with the last signature and opening it up to the middle spread. And then taking this piece of sari silk ribbon, all you have to do is tie it around the entire journal, and that will tie the pages in just like this. And you can leave the ribbon on at the end or cut the extra off. You can tie it at the top, or you could even take a piece of ribbon and sort of tie them all together in the center like this. Lots of different things you can do here to make this pretty and interesting, but I'm going to be doing mine a little bit different because I have this lace ridge on the bottom. When I tie it in like that, it gets all wrinkled and I just didn't like the way it looked. So we're going to be punching our own holes so that we can thread it through there instead. So for that, I'm going to be taking some of these silver eyelets and taking this crocodile. I will be using that to punch my holes, just since the cardboard is a little bit thicker. And then laying out all of these eyelets just to make sure they would fit on the cover, which they do. So if you want more signatures than this, you'll either have to have a thicker spine or smaller eyelets. And then I'm going to be using our 2-inch template to sort of measure out everything that I need so that it stays even. I've already gone ahead and cut out a spine and marked out the 3 signatures by just kind of going in between the holes for spacing. And that gave me even spaced signature template holes that I can use. And I also went ahead and already poked the holes out so that I can just use them to mark where everything needs to be. And we'll also be using this little foldable spine template piece for the pages, just like that. And I always line my signatures into the book where I want them to be so they're not too high or too low, and then match my spine to that sort of, to the holes on the pages that I'll be making, if that makes sense. So like if the spine is a little too low, then it means that the signatures will be like kind of hanging out of the book. So I always match the spine to the signature holes, and that way the signatures stay nice and even in the cover. So once I sort of have that laid out where it needs to be, I'm going to go ahead and remove all these little eyelet pieces since they were just there for reference. And I'm going to clip in my spine just like this, laying it out. And I'll be clipping it at the top and bottom so that it doesn't move. Again, a reminder that you'll need to poke the holes out of the top and bottom line of holes on the template. And my spine was a little bit too small, so I'm just kind of folding it and creasing it so that it matches and that all the holes are actually on the spine so that they don't curve. And then taking a Sharpie, we are going to be marking in the top and bottom holes only. You don't need to do the center row, which is something that I told myself multiple times and then promptly forgot and accidentally marked them anyway. So the ink bleeds through and makes a mark right where I didn't want it to be. That was my bad. So I'm just gonna end up covering that up later with a little bit of lace, no harm done. But just for reference, you only need to do the top and bottom row. So using a Sharpie here, I'm going to go ahead and remove the template, and you should see a mark that bled through to show you where you need to poke a hole out. Real fast, covering up my little mistake with a little bit of lace. And then we are going to be taking the crocodile and cutting out those 6 holes that we just made. Cleaning up around the inside where the lace is a little bit with some scissors. And then taking our eyelets, we're just going to pop those through, and they should go in nice and easy, just like that. And then I'm going to use the crocodile to flatten them. And when you're done, it should look like this. All right, so now that those are done, we can go ahead and start by securing our signatures in. And for that, we're going to take this little template piece and fold it in half right along the dotted line that is provided. Just like that. And then clipping it into the center of the signature. Again, sort of just making sure everything is nice and even. All right, and now that that is clipped in, I'm going to be taking the crocodile again. You could also use a hole punch, and I'm just going to punch out that top and bottom hole, leaving the center one as is. We don't need to poke that hole out, so just the top and bottom. Just punching the top and bottom hole out like so. And then I'm going to carefully remove the template but leave the clips, and that way the pages don't shuffle or move around and everything stays nice and even, which will help us later when threading the silk ribbon through. And I kind of thought that these holes were like not as nice to look at, so I decided to go ahead and get these label reinforcers, and we just kind of had these laying around from our office supplies. And I'm going to be taking a little bit of paint in pink, purple, and white, and I'm going to just be mixing that together to try to get a color that is similar to the flowers on these papers. And I will just be painting those label reinforcers with a sponge. And I'm going to be doing 6 of them since we have 6 holes that we are making total with our signatures. And when they're done, they should look something like that. And after painting all of them, I will just be setting it aside to dry while I go ahead and make the holes in the rest of the signatures. And again, here's just showing you that you can use a handheld punch. You just sort of have to move the clip over a little bit to make room, but it's not too hard, and you can just cut it out that way if you don't have a crocodile. And you could also use an awl as well if you don't have a hole punch at all. And then just sort of widen it with something like a paintbrush or a pencil. All right, and now that these are done and dry, I'm going to go ahead and stick them down onto our pages. Right in the center, just like that. One at the bottom and one at the top, just like so. And it just helps make them look a little more decorative and matchy-matchy to the page itself. I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the other signatures as well. All right, and now that those are done, we can go ahead and start threading things into the actual journal cover. So again, I like to start at the back with my signatures always. So I'm going to be taking this back signature as well as some sari silk ribbon that we have in several different shades of purple going dark to light. So starting with the lightest one, we're going to thread it through this top hole and then through the bottom. And I'm going to try to pull it taut and sort of straighten out the ribbons so it's aligned with the paper like this, just kind of flat and flush, like so. And then we're going to go ahead and thread it through the holes that we made in the cover. Just like this. And then pulling it through and pulling it tight, I decided to go ahead and tie mine into a little bow. You might think this is a little maybe messy or shabby or something, so you don't have to do this if you don't want. You could always cut the extra thread off or just sort of leave it loose towards the bottom, or however you'd like to do that. This is just kind of what I decided to do. And then taking off the clip and sort of gently folding the paper like this. And we can go ahead and do the same thing to our other signatures. And when it's finished, this is what it should look like. All the pages should be nicely tied in, and you'll have this pretty little decorative ribbon spine. Just like that. And now the lace sort of decorative edge at the bottom isn't crushed, and I am very happy. Just a little bit of a different way to do a tie-in if you are interested in trying it. Alright, so now that this one is finished, we can go ahead and move on to our third and final cover, which is going to be the hidden spine sewed in cover binding. So for this one, we are going to be taking 2 decorative papers that we're going to use for the inside. You can use any paper you want. These are just the ones that I chose. And we'll be removing the white borders. And these are also going to go along with our hidden spine template, which you want to print on the exact same paper. That is what hides the spine. So it'll go just like this, with these 2 sort of covering the flap, and everything will become seamless in the end. So we're going to set those papers aside and go ahead and cut out our template just like this. And sort of aligning it with the spine, we will be making a crease right where these sort of flaps are on the template. Go ahead and fold them like this. And then they should swing freely with the covers. Alright, now that that's done, we are going to be taking an old cardboard box that I had lying around that I don't mind poking holes in, and using an awl, I'm going to go ahead and make 5 holes in the top, middle, and bottom of the template, right where the sort of holes are marked on it. And when it's done, it should look like this. And I went ahead and already laid out my 5 different signatures, again sort of mixing them all up. I'm using some bee papers and daisy papers along with some coffee dyed papers, and I already sort of laid them out in the order that I want them to go. And again, just like last time, we are going to start by folding the signatures in half, again making sure that everything is right side up and sort of even and flush with one another as best as you can get it, so that none of the pages come out too crooked or wonky. Alright, and then opening it up to the center, we are going to be placing that other template piece right in the crease, securing everything down with a clip, again preventing those pages from moving. Just like that, and then poking our 3 holes and removing that template piece but leaving the clips so that the pages don't move around, and then doing that to all of our signatures. And my signatures are around 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 pages. I don't always make them exactly even. It's kind of however thick you want your journal to be. I would say 5 or 4 is about average. 6 is if you want it really full. And then taking our binding kit, I'm going to be grabbing some waxed thread and a needle to bind our pages in. And we do have this binding kit linked down below if you are interested. And then when measuring out my thread, I find that it's best to go the length of the page once, twice, and then a half. And that is about the perfect length for binding every time. And then if you've never done this stitch before, it is called a pamphlet stitch. And if you've seen it, you can go ahead and skip ahead past this part. But if you are new, all you need to do is thread it through just a little bit so that there's like a 4-inch tail sort of sticking out of one end of the needle. And we are going to be sewing it directly onto our hidden spine template itself. So we're going to start with the very last signature and the very last set of holes on the template. And we're going to begin in the back center hole, just like this. Going through that crease right in the middle. and pulling it through just so that there is like a 3 or 4 inch tail left in the back. Just like that. And then we're going to be going through the top. And again, it's very important that you watch where you are sewing. If you accidentally sew through the wrong row, you will have to redo it because then the page will be very crooked. So just going through those top signature holes like this. And pulling it taut, but not so taut that you accidentally pull this tail through. You want that to remain sort of sticking out of the back like this. And then we're going to go down and do it through the bottom row. Pulling it through. And then lastly, we are going to be going back through the center again. Pulling everything tight. Just like this. And we are going to remove the needle once it's pulled through, and taking those 2 loose ends, we want one end on either side of the stitch. So the stitch should be in the center of both of those tails, those thread ends. And then we're going to tie it in a knot, pulling it tight, tying in a knot right over that stitch. And this is going to prevent the knot itself from slipping through the hole and your page is coming undone. So it's very important that you have the stitch in between those 2 pieces. And I like to triple knot mine, which might be overkill, but better safe than sorry, I think. So I'm going to tie it 3 times, and then I cut off the ends. I would not recommend cutting them off this close. I accidentally did it too close this first time because I'm used to sort of tying them a little bit differently than the hidden spine version. But since it's going to be hidden by the spine anyway, it's best to leave those ends a little bit longer, and that will prevent them from accidentally like loosening up and coming undone over time. And then removing the clips, we are going to be sort of gently creasing the page over like so. Giving it a gentle fold. And there you go, that is the first, or rather last, signature done. And we are going to go ahead and do the same thing for all of the other signatures. And when it's finished, it should look something like this. All the pages nicely secured to that hidden spine template. And then we are going to go ahead and secure the template down to the actual cover. So for that, I like to take a clip and clip all of the pages up, and that kind of keeps them out of the way while I am gluing everything down. Just like so. And then when placing it down, it's very important to get everything aligned properly. I didn't do that. I was off just slightly, and it did mean that I have to redo one of the creases. So I would recommend making sure that it is exactly aligned with your spine. But just adding a little bit of glue on the one flap and pressing it down onto the back of the cover. And then here with this front one, this is where it was slightly off, so I had to make my own crease again, sort of re-creasing it in a different spot because it wasn't properly aligned. But that's okay, it's a pretty easy fix, just making my own little crease here, and then again going in with the glue and gluing that flap down to the front cover and using a bone folder to sort of smooth everything out. Letting it dry for a little bit. And then we are going to go ahead and add the inside cover to cover up the spine itself, the hidden spine. And I found that just taking one of these pages and folding them in half was about perfect for me. You can kind of decide how big you want this to be, like depending on how much of the sort of border you want showing. I like a little more border showing, so I'm just going to glue mine in nice and tight to that sort of crease where the pages are, and then removing all of the clips like that. Very satisfying ending. And there you go. That is our sewn in signatures. Just like that. All right, so that is going to finish today's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye!